The knock came at 11 on a Thursday night, hard enough to rise above the rain striking my windows. I had been standing over a set of bridge load calculations when I heard it again. 3 quick blows, a pause, then 2 more. Nobody in our quiet Asheville neighborhood knocked like that unless something was wrong. When I opened the door, Sophia Bennett stood beneath the porch light with rain running from her hair onto the shoulders of her coat. Her eyes were red, but she was holding herself so still that the effort looked painful. In one hand she carried a small canvas bag. In the other, her phone hung from a cracked screen. Across the street, every light in the house she shared with Marcus was on. Sophia looked back at it once. Then she faced me. "Can I stay here tonight?" I did not ask what happened. I did not look past her for Marcus. I stepped aside and said, "Come in. Before we go on, please like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments whether opening that door was the right thing to do." My name is Peter Callahan. I was 36 years old that night, and I made my living as a structural engineer, which meant most of my days were spent making sure buildings stood because someone had bothered to calculate where the pressure would go. People were different. Pressure hid itself in them. I worked from a second-floor room facing the street. Mornings belonged to drawings and contractors, afternoons to job sites or my small garden. At night, I usually ate on the back porch with a book beside my plate. I had been single for almost 3 years. Diana, the woman I had once believed I would marry, had ended our relationship in the same calm voice she used during business meetings. "You're kind, Peter," she had said, "but you're too safe. Nothing changes around you." For a long time, I treated those words like a professional assessment. A flaw identified, a weakness documented. After she left, I made my life even quieter. I told myself I preferred it that way. Quiet did not accuse you. Quiet did not leave because you failed to become someone more exciting. Then Sophia moved into the house across the street with Marcus Reed, and without realizing it, I began looking out my front window more often. She had lived there for 8 months before the night she knocked on my door. Marcus announced their arrival before the moving truck had finished parking. He wore polished shoes, drove a spotless black SUV, and spoke about houses as if price were their only interesting feature. Sophia was different. She carried old books from their car in both arms, careful not to let the boxes tilt. The first time I spoke to her, she was standing beside the mailbox with a leather-bound volume pressed against her chest. "Is that as old as it looks?" I asked. She glanced down and smiled. "Older. The binding is failing, but the paper is still good." I knew almost nothing about book restoration, but I understood the respect in her hands. A week later, I fixed the sagging gate beside their driveway after seeing her struggle with it. Marcus had been away. Sophia stood nearby while I reset the hinge. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know." That answer made her watch me in a way I remembered later. There were other moments, small enough that I dismissed them. We spoke near the mailboxes, about my garden and the books she repaired. Once, a storm caught her walking home, and I gave her the dark blue umbrella near my door. "You'll need it back," she said. "I own another one." She kept it in her car after that. I saw it on the passenger seat more than once. Marcus often interrupted our conversations without appearing to notice he was doing it. He would call her name from the porch or answer a question I had asked her. If she mentioned a project, he explained why it was not financially important. If a neighbor complimented her work, he made a joke about how patient he had to be with her little hobby. I disliked him, but dislike was not evidence. Sophia never asked me to interfere, so I did what I had trained myself to do. I observed. I calculated. I stayed on my side of the street. Until that Thursday night. Inside my house, Sophia stood on the entry rug while rainwater gathered around her shoes. The silence between us was not awkward. It was fragile. "I'll get you a towel," I said. She nodded without looking at me. I brought her a clean towel and a gray sweatshirt that belonged to me. Then I pointed toward the downstairs bathroom. "You can change in there. I'll make tea." When she came into the kitchen 10 minutes later, the sweatshirt reached almost to her knees. Her wet clothes were folded inside a grocery bag she had found beneath the sink. She sat at the table with both hands around the mug I placed in front of her. I stayed across from her. For several minutes, the only sound was the rain against the roof. "I got the Hart collection," she finally said. I knew the name. Evelyn Hart owned an antique bookstore downtown, the kind with narrow aisles and first editions behind glass. "The restoration project?" Sophia looked surprised that I remembered. "Yes, 47 books. Some are almost 200 years old. It's the biggest contract I've ever been offered." "That sounds good." "It is." Her fingers tightened around the mug. "Marcus thinks I should refuse it." "Why?" "He says it will take too much time. He says Evelyn is underpaying me. He says if I want a real business, I should stop wasting months on sentimental projects and let him introduce me to investors." "What do you think?" Her eyes lifted to mine. The question seemed to catch her off guard. "I think I want to do it." "Then that matters." She stared into the tea again. "I said that to him. I waited. He told me I was being childish. I told him it was my work. He said my work only existed because he paid most of the mortgage." Her voice flattened, as if she were reciting something she had already repeated to herself. Then he knocked a glass off the counter. When I reached for my phone, he took it and threw it down. She placed the cracked phone on the table. "Did he touch you?" I asked.
No.
"Did he block you from leaving?"
No.
"Not exactly." Not exactly was not the same as no. Sophia drew a slow breath. "He stood by the door and kept asking where I thought I would go. He said no one else would put up with me when I got dramatic. Then he moved away and told me to leave if I wanted to embarrass myself." Her eyes filled, but she did not let the tears fall. "I know how it sounds," she said. "He didn't hit me. Maybe I overreacted. You left because you didn't feel safe." She looked at me. "That is enough for tonight," I said. I did not tell her what Marcus was or what she should do. I had seen people confuse certainty with help. I had no intention of becoming another man who made choices for her. I carried extra blankets to the living room and made up the sofa. I showed her where the locks were and gave her a charger for the phone. "You don't owe me an explanation tonight," I said. She stood beside the sofa, still holding the towel around her damp hair. "Why do you believe me?" I thought of the way she had looked across the street before entering my house. "Because you looked like you needed someone to open the door." For the first time that night, her shoulders lowered. I went upstairs, closed my bedroom door, and lay awake listening to the rain. At 2 in the morning, I heard her moving downstairs. At first I thought she was leaving. Then I heard the quiet click of the deadbolt being checked. She was making sure it was locked. That sound told me more than anything she had said. I woke before 6 out of habit and found the sofa empty. For one sharp second, I thought Sophia had slipped back across the street without saying goodbye. Then I smelled coffee. She was standing in my kitchen wearing her own jeans and my sweatshirt, her damp hair tied loosely at the back of her neck. 2 mugs sat on the counter. She pushed one toward me. "Black," she said.
No sugar.
I took it. "How did you know?" A faint color rose in her face. "You drink it outside most mornings. So you watch me?" "Your porch faces my porch." That was not an answer. It was the closest either of us came to laughing after the night before. Her smile appeared briefly and then faded when her phone vibrated on the counter. Marcus had sent 11 messages. Sophia read them without opening most of them. I could see the pattern in the first lines displayed on the screen. Apology, explanation, accusation, apology again. "He says he was tired," she said. "He says he was scared I was making a bad decision." "What do you want to do?" She looked toward the front window. The rain had stopped, and the house across the street appeared ordinary in the gray morning. "I need clothes. My tools are there. The Hart books arrive Monday." I wanted to tell her not to go back. The words rose immediately, driven by the memory of the deadbolt clicking at 2 in the morning. But the choice was hers. "I can walk over with you if you want," I said. She shook her head. "I need to do this myself." At the door, she folded my sweatshirt over one arm and held out the empty mug. You can keep the sweatshirt until your clothes are dry. Her fingers tightened around it. Thank you for last night. You never have to thank me for being allowed to feel safe. She looked as if she wanted to say something else. Instead, she picked up her canvas bag and crossed the street. Marcus's front door opened before she reached it. I stayed behind my window long enough to see her walk inside. Then I stepped away because watching was not the same as helping, and I did not want to become another person who treated her life as something to monitor. For the next 3 days, I saw almost nothing of her. On Monday afternoon, a delivery van stopped outside her house. 2 men unloaded 6 wooden crates marked Heart Collection. Fragile. Sophia appeared on the porch with a clipboard. Marcus came out behind her, spoke to one of the delivery men, and pointed toward the garage as if the project belonged to him. That evening, Sophia knocked on my door again. This time it was not raining. She wore a linen shirt with the sleeves rolled up and carried a box of small tools. My work table is in the room beside Marcus's office, she said. He has calls all week. Would it be strange if I worked here for a few hours? I looked at the large kitchen table where I often spread my drawings. Only if you object to load distribution calculations. I restore books held together by dust and hope. I'm not easily frightened. She took one end of the table. I took the other. That first afternoon, we spoke less than 20 words. I reviewed plans for a hotel renovation while she examined a cracked leather spine beneath a magnifying lamp. The house settled around us. Every so often she made a note or changed a tool. I noticed how her hands became steadier when she worked. At 5, I made coffee without asking and placed a cup beside her. She looked at it, then at me. You remembered. You remembered first. The next day she returned. Then again 2 days later. Over the following weeks, a rhythm formed quietly. Sophia arrived after Marcus left, carried in 1 or 2 books, and worked at the far end of my table. Sometimes we spoke. Sometimes an entire morning passed in silence. It was not an empty silence. It was the kind that allowed both people to remain themselves. One morning, Sophia ran her palm over a sheet of handmade paper and said, "Your house feels exactly the way I thought it would." I looked up. "You imagined the inside of my house?" She smiled without embarrassment this time. Quiet, organized, warm. That sounds like a polite way to say boring. No, her expression changed. It feels like no one is waiting for you to make a mistake. I did not know how to answer that, so I made another cup of coffee. By the 3rd week, I was preparing 2 cups before she arrived. I told myself it was efficient. I told myself I would have made the 2nd cup for any regular guest. I had no regular guests. The Heart Project did more than bring Sophia to my kitchen. It gave her proof that Marcus had been wrong. Evelyn Hart approved the first restored volumes and paid Sophia the initial installment specified in the contract. Sophia showed me the deposit on her phone one afternoon, her face bright with an expression I had rarely seen across the street. "It's the most I've ever earned from one project," she said. "You earned it before she paid you." The brightness dimmed slightly. "Marcus says the hourly rate is still too low. What do you say?" She hesitated. Then she straightened. "I say the project gives me a portfolio that could bring in 3 more clients." That sounds like the opinion of the person doing the work. She studied me for a moment. "You always ask what I think. Shouldn't I?" Her answer was almost too quiet to hear. "Not everyone does." A few days later, she told me the rest. We were at Evelyn's bookstore, standing in a back room that smelled of leather, paper, and cedar shelves. I had offered to help Sophia transport a finished volume because rain was forecast and the protective case was awkward. Evelyn, a silver-haired woman with sharp eyes and ink on 2 fingers, examined the restored binding beneath a lamp. "You gave it another century," she said. Sophia's face changed whenever someone respected her work. She seemed to occupy more space. After Evelyn went to prepare the next set of books, Sophia and I stood beside a high table stacked with invoices. "Marcus has access to my checking account," she said abruptly. I kept my voice even. "Does he have access to the business payment?" "He will see it if I transfer it into our joint account." Do you want him to?
No.
It was the first time I heard her answer that kind of question without qualifying it. On the drive home, she told me how the control had developed. At first, Marcus had offered to organize their finances because he was better with money. Then he began questioning purchases. He checked her work schedule because he wanted to coordinate dinners. He criticized friends who took time away from their relationship. He suggested clothing that looked more professional and mocked what she chose herself. Every restriction arrived disguised as help. He wasn't like this when we met, she said. Or maybe he was, and I thought attention meant love. How long have you been together? Almost 6 years. 6 years explained the exhaustion in her voice. Leaving was not one decision. It meant challenging thousands of smaller decisions she had already been taught not to trust. He always apologizes, she continued, and for a while things get better. Then I do something he didn't approve of, and somehow I'm the person who damaged the relationship. What would you do if you knew you could support yourself? She looked through the windshield at the mountains beyond the rooftops. I would open my own restoration studio. That is not what I asked. Her hands tightened in her lap. I would leave. I pulled into my driveway and turned off the engine. Sophia, someone who loves you shouldn't make you ask permission to live your own life. She looked at me for a long time. Are you telling me to leave him?
No.
I'm telling you that you are allowed to decide. The difference mattered. I could see it in the way she breathed. Over the next 2 weeks, she began making decisions that did not involve me. That was how I knew they were real. She opened a separate business account. Evelyn gave her a written schedule for the remaining payments and referred another client. Sophia made a list of apartments within her budget. She photographed receipts for furniture and equipment she had bought for the house. She replaced her phone and created passwords Marcus did not know. I did not ask to see the listings or offer money. When she asked about a neighborhood, I answered as a resident of Asheville, not as a man hoping she would move closer. Still, hope had entered the calculations. I noticed it whenever she arrived. I noticed it when she tucked loose hair behind her ear while working, when she laughed at one of my dry comments, and when she left in the afternoon and the house seemed to lose temperature. I knew what I felt before I was willing to name it. Then she asked me to help with the shelves. Marcus was showing a property in Hendersonville that Saturday, and Sophia wanted to install a wall of shallow shelves in the room where she worked. I arrived with a drill, a level, and enough lumber to make the job last most of the afternoon. She had cleared the room except for her work table and several covered books. Sunlight fell through the window onto the unfinished boards. For the first hour, we discussed measurements. It was easier to speak about studs, brackets, and weight limits than about the fact that she had started looking at apartments. When I climbed down from the step stool, Sophia handed me a screwdriver. Her fingers touched mine and stayed there. Do you really like living alone? She asked. I looked at her hand against mine. I've gotten used to it. I didn't ask whether you were used to it. There was no safe professional answer. Sophia stood close enough that I could see a pale line of glue near her wrist. Her expression was steady, but I saw the question beneath it. I also saw the house around us, Marcus's house, even if her name was on some of the bills. She had not left. She was still trying to understand whether she could. I released the screwdriver and stepped back. Something flickered across her face. Sophia, I said, whatever you decide about Marcus has to be because it is right for you, not because I'm standing in this room. You think that is what I'm doing? I think you deserve to know the difference. She folded her arms, not defensively, but as if holding herself still. And what if I already know? My heart gave one hard beat. Then I still won't cross that line while you're with him. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she nodded. Okay. I expected disappointment. Instead, her eyes softened. Thank you, she said. I finished the shelves. She placed the first restored book on the center one, and I went home before Marcus returned. The line I refused to cross did not reduce what I felt. It made the cost clearer. Marcus came to my house 4 days later. He arrived just after 7 in the evening, still wearing his suit. He did not knock with the panic Sophia had brought to my door. He knocked like a man expecting compliance. When I opened it, he remained on the porch. "Stay away from my girlfriend. I'm not keeping Sophia anywhere. She spends more time here than she does at home. That is something you should discuss with her." His jaw tightened. "You like pretending you're the decent man, don't you? Waiting until she's upset, giving her a place to run." I wanted to tell him exactly what I thought of a man who broke objects and called it concern. But anger would have allowed him to turn the conversation into a contest between us. "Sophia decides where she goes," I said. "Not you. Not me." He stared at me, then gave a short, humorless laugh. "You have no idea what she's like when she gets emotional. I know what you sound like when you talk about her." He stepped closer. I did not move. Then a neighbor's garage door opened down the street, and Marcus glanced toward the sound. Image mattered to him more than confrontation. He straightened his jacket and walked away. Within days, I heard that I was being discussed. No one openly accused me, but conversations paused near the mailboxes. One neighbor asked whether Sophia and Marcus were having trouble, in a tone that revealed Marcus had already offered his version. Sophia continued working at my house for 3 more days. Then I attended a Blue Ridge Historical Society event where Evelyn displayed several books from the collection. Diana was there representing the architectural firm renovating the building. I had not seen her in almost a year. She greeted me politely, then noticed Sophia beside the display. "So you're Peter's neighbor," Diana said after introductions. "He has always been reliable. You may have to wait forever for him to admit he cares about something, but once he does, he is impossible to move." She meant it as a mild joke. She knew nothing about Marcus, the rainy night, or the 2 cups on my table. Sophia smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. The next morning, she did not come over. She sent one message: "I need a little time. Please don't think I'm ungrateful." I replied, "You never owed me gratitude. Take the time you need." For 2 weeks, I did not see her except through my front window. Sometimes her car was gone before sunrise. Sometimes lights burned late in the room where I had installed the shelves. Once I saw cardboard boxes near her garage, but Marcus carried them inside before I could understand what they meant. I made 2 cups of coffee every morning. The first was habit. The second was hope pretending to be habit. By 8, Sophia's cup would be cold. During those 2 weeks, I understood the flaw in the life I had built after Diana left. I had confused peace with silence. Restraint had dignity, but hiding behind it forever did not. I decided that when Sophia had made her choice, whatever it was, I would make mine clear. She returned on another rainy night. Not a storm this time, just a soft autumn rain ticking against the porch roof. When I opened the door, she stood there holding the dark blue umbrella I had given her months earlier. She had no canvas bag. In her other hand was a single brass key. "I left," she said. I moved aside, but she did not enter immediately. "Marcus gave me an ultimatum," she continued. "Stop seeing you, turn down the next restoration contract, and let him handle the business accounts or move out." "What did you say?" I told him the apartment was already rented. The key in her hand caught the porch light. She had signed the lease 10 days earlier. During our 2 weeks apart, she completed the Heart collection, received the final payment, and moved her tools into a small apartment. She had not been deciding between Marcus and me. She had been building an exit that belonged to her. "I didn't leave Marcus for you," she said. "I know. No, I need you to hear it. I left because I couldn't keep disappearing inside my own life. I was becoming someone who asked permission before accepting work, buying lunch, calling a friend, even choosing what to wear. I left because I want to know who I am when no one is telling me." The rain made a soft curtain behind her. "I'm glad," I said. "Not because it brings you here, because it takes you back to yourself." Her eyes filled. This time she let the tears come. "I chose your door that first night because I knew you would open it," she said. "But that wasn't the only reason." I waited. "You never looked at me like I was difficult. You never acted as if being quiet made me weak. When I was around you, I didn't feel like a problem someone had to manage." She glanced down at the umbrella handle. I had feelings for you before that night. I just didn't want to admit what they meant. There it was, the truth I had wanted and feared in equal measure. I started making 2 cups of coffee before I understood why, I said. Sophia laughed through her tears. I stepped onto the porch, close enough to take her free hand, but I did not pull her inside. I care about you, I said, more than I have allowed myself to say. But I don't want your first step out of that house to be a step into dependence on me. It won't be. She lifted the apartment key. I have my own place, my own account, my own work. I know, and I'm not asking to move in. I know that too. She squeezed my hand. I'm asking whether we can be honest. Yes. That night, she stayed for dinner, not because she needed shelter, but because she chose my company. Afterward, I drove her to her apartment. I carried 1 box of books upstairs only after she asked, placed it beside her work table, and left before midnight. We did not rush. Over the next several months, Sophia built the life Marcus said she could not sustain. Evelyn referred clients, and Sophia rented shared studio space downtown. She learned to price her skill without apologizing. After Marcus alternated between apologies and blame, she changed her number, and a lawyer helped separate their shared belongings. My role was not to direct any of it. I repaired a work table when she asked. I brought dinner during a difficult restoration. I listened when she wanted to speak and left space when she did not. We also dated. Slowly, deliberately. Our first real date was at a small restaurant near Pack Square, where Sophia ordered dessert before dinner because she said she was tired of saving the good part for permission. We walked through the botanical gardens. She met me at job sites for lunch. I sat in her studio while she worked, just as she had once sat at my kitchen table. I told her about Diana. Not only what Diana had said, but how eagerly I had used those words as an excuse to stop risking anything. Sophia told me that gentleness was not the same as passivity, but silence could become a wall if I never let anyone know what stood behind it. She was right. By early October, leaves had begun turning gold along our street. Sophia no longer lived across from me. Marcus had sold the house and moved before summer ended. The dark windows no longer felt like a threat. They were simply part of the neighborhood. One evening, Sophia and I sat on my back porch after dinner. A restored book rested on the table between us. 2 coffee cups stood beside it, though it was late enough that neither of us should have been drinking coffee. She placed her hand over mine. "Can I stay now?" she asked. The words returned me to the rainy night, the cracked phone, and the small bag beside my door. "Are you asking about tonight?" She shook her head. "I'm asking whether we can stop pretending this is only friendship." For once, I did not hide behind patience or caution. I turned my hand beneath hers and held on. "Then stay," I said. "Not because you need somewhere safe, but because we're choosing each other." She leaned closer, giving me time to change my mind. I did not. Our first kiss was quiet, brief, and certain. It did not rescue either of us. It confirmed a choice we had both reached on our own. Sophia kept her apartment for several more months. When her lease ended, we talked about money, work, privacy, and the fears we refused to carry silently into a shared home. She moved in only after we decided together. The room beside my office became her restoration studio. The shelves from Marcus's house did not come with her. We built new ones. The old blue umbrella now stands beside the front door. Her cup sits beside mine in the kitchen cabinet. Most mornings, I make coffee while she works near the window, bent over a book that survived because someone believed damaged things deserved patience rather than force. My house is still quiet, but Diana had been wrong about one thing. Quiet does not mean nothing changes. Sometimes it means 2 people finally feel safe enough to become fully themselves. Sometimes love does not begin with a kiss. Sometimes it begins when someone knocks after the worst argument of her life, and you open the door without trying to own what happens next. And sometimes, much later, that person asks to stay again. And this time, both of you understand that staying is not surrender. It is a choice. What mattered most? Peter opening the door or Sophia choosing herself before choosing love? Share your answer below and subscribe for more slow burn stories about love built on trust.